inside the aircraft carrier, as everyone entered the interior of the aerospace aircraft carrier. Soon, the huge aerospace aircraft carrier gradually began to take off from the sea. After flying to an altitude of 1,000 meters, Nick Fury directly ordered to activate the reflector to become invisible. Wait until all orders are given. Nick Fury turned to Suche and said, "Sorry, I called you over at this time. I just need your help with something." All along, Nick Fury wanted to have a good talk with Suche. But from Suche's first diary entry to the last one, Nick Fury couldn't find the right opportunity at all. Or rather, he didn't know what to talk to Suche about. You can't say, "Hey, I know you came from a parallel world because I have your diary," to Suche. Not to mention how stupid this move is. Most importantly, as the holder of the Black Gold Diary, it is impossible to mention this matter to non-Black Gold Diary holders, including Suche, the Diary Master, and Nick Fury knows. To keep Suche in this parallel world, one should rely on feelings, not so-called interests. After all, for these righteous superheroes, sometimes feelings are always more important than interests. That's why he couldn't really talk to Suche. For example, if there is a bomb in front of you, if it explodes, the Earth will be destroyed and billions of people will die. If you want it to stop counting down, then you need to kill 100 poor people. If it was himself, then Nick Fury would definitely choose to sacrifice 100 innocent people and use their lives to exchange the lives of billions of people on the Earth. In his opinion, it's worth it. But if it is the superheroes of the Avengers Alliance, they will definitely not make the same choice as themselves. They would rather sacrifice themselves than exchange 100 innocent lives for billions of lives. It's just a different position. It can be said that they are pedantic, but it cannot be said that their choice is wrong. After all, if you were one of 100 innocent lives, would you rather be killed or saved? Nick Fury thinks he knows Suche. He also knew that Suche, a member of the first Avengers Alliance in the parallel world, must also know himself. So, this is the reason why Nick Fury never had a real deep chat with Suche. After telling everyone what happened, Nick Fury looked at the crowd and said seriously, "So everyone, this is why I asked you to come here. Now, what can you do?" After listening to Nick Fury talk about what happened, everyone subconsciously looked at Suche. Another name for Tesseract is Space Gem, one of the 6 Infinity Stones. One of its uses is to open the space transmission channel. Since Loki has snatched the Space Gem, the purpose should be to use the Tesseract to open up a space channel and attract aliens to invade the Earth through this channel. Then the most important thing right now is to find Tesseract. Seeing everyone looking at him, Suche looked around the crowd, and then his eyes fell on Tony and Dr. Na. "Dr. Banner, as far as I know, the energy emitted by Tesseract is gamma rays. You are an expert in this field, so how to search for traces of Tesseract is up to you. Tony, you are in charge of assisting Dr. Banner. Okay, but I need spectrometers in a laboratory, the more spectrometers the better." Hearing the task arranged by Suche, Dr. Bruce Banner nodded. Although other fields are not top-notch, but when it comes to gamma rays, there are very few people in this world who can surpass themselves at the beginning of Dr. Banner. I read my dad's notes. Hearing Suche's words, Tony on the side crossed his arms and said, "There is research on Tesseract in my father's notes. If you want to stimulate the energy of Tesseract, in addition to knowing how Tesseract is used originally, you also need some stabilizers. Definitely, this stabilizer is not used to target Tesseract originally, but to stabilize the channel opened by Tesseract for a long time. Maybe we can use that to narrow things down a bit too." Seeing Tony's serious narration, Suche nodded. "About science, you and Dr. Na are experts. So let's see how to do it. What about us?" Steve on the side looked at Suche. "What are the 3 of us doing? Take a break, or be curious about this space carrier and wander around." Facing Steve, Suche smiled and said, "Until we find Loki, the only thing we have to do is rest. Raise your spirits and get ready to fight. I'm good at this." Laughing at Suche, Steve said seriously, "Although the enemies this time are aliens, I can fight them for a day. That's all for now. Also, Mr. Nick Fury, get everything Dr. Banner and Tony need in the lab ready. Also, the lounge between me and Natasha Romanoff and Steve should be prepared." "Definitely." seeing that Su Che arranged things very concisely. The admiration in Nick Fury's eyes never stopped. It is indeed a superhero who has more than 10 years of Avenger career in the parallel world. Sure enough, he is familiar with this kind of thing. Perhaps, the newly formed Avengers just need such an experienced and qualified spiritual mentor. After preparing the things and laboratories needed by Tony and Dr. Banner, Nick Fury handed over the documents that had been prepared to Su Che. Picking up the document and taking a look, the title of the document is about the proposal to form Avengers. The content of the file is the information of the members of the first-generation Avengers Alliance. This world needs superheroes, because compared to weapons, maybe you superheroes are the most beneficial counterattack when the Earth faces threats from aliens. I have always had an idea, that is to gather a group of powerful superpowers together to form Avengers, so as to face the potential threat of aliens. Speaking of this, Nick Fury looked at Su Che and said seriously, it can be seen that in the hearts of Steve and Tony, and even Natasha Romanoff, you are the core of this small team. So Su, I hope you can agree to the formation of Avengers and take up this responsibility. Definitely, I can assure you that Avengers does not need to obey anyone's orders, and it is definitely not a knife or a weapon in the hands of S.H.I.E.L.D. or a certain force. It is the last and most powerful trump card of the Earth. Maybe I could give the Avengers formation papers to anyone in the file, like Captain Steve Rogers, like Natasha Romanoff and Tony. But I hope you can be the first to agree and join, because they are more willing to trust you than me. Some underground base. Where did you find this hiding place? Dr. Selvig, who was controlled by the psychic scepter, looked at the empty underground research room and a group of people who were constantly moving various instruments. He turned his head and asked curiously to Lin Te Barden, who was also mind-controlled. After a long time in S.H.I.E.L.D., I will always know something that others don't. Saying something to Dr. Selvig, Barden walked over to Loki. All the experimental equipment and personnel have been settled, and then we can continue to implement the plan. Well done. Looking at Barden, Loki nodded in satisfaction with the scepter in his hand. Actually, at the beginning, the person I wanted to control was not you. After getting the psychic scepter and knowing the purpose of the psychic scepter, the first candidate that popped up in my mind. Actually, 120 is the guy on your planet who holds the shield and can pick up the shield that belongs to Thor Mjolnir. You mean Captain Steve Rogers? Hearing Loki's words, Barden replied blankly. Barden, who was controlled by the psychic scepter, didn't feel that he was insulting himself. At this moment, it is more like listening to this sentence from a third perspective. Not even half offended. It's him. Finding a rock and sitting down, Loki looked at the scepter in his hand, with a look of anticipation in his eyes. It won't be long before Chitauri comes, and the stupid and narrow-minded people on Earth will know what the destiny is. I, Loki, will be the new king of the Earth, and I will bring new life to the Earthlings like ants. Having said that, Loki turned his head and glanced at Barden, but compared to this, I prefer to see Thor's expression. If I can control that Steve Rogers, then I can see Thor's bewildered, angry, and frustrated expression when he throws the hammer but can't get it back, and sees the hammer fall into someone else's hands. I think that will be the source of all my happiness from now on. Hearing Loki say this, Lin Te Barden pulled the bowstring. Is it now? If you want to do it now, then I know where he is. Not surprisingly, they should be in the sky at this moment. Forget it. Glancing at the people who were carrying and assembling various instruments, Loki shook his head with a smile. Let's get down to business first. After all, there are still people watching us from above. But the idea of reining in Steve Rogers and letting him snatch Thor Mjolnir, I will never give up. Seeing Loki's serious smile, Lin Te Barden raised his head and glanced above. Well, he didn't see who was watching them. Aircraft carrier. Eat? Handing over the bag containing dried blueberries to Su Che, Tony asked kindly. After watching Su Che grab a few dried blueberries from the bag and eat them, Tony Stark smiled and said, I trust you, buddy, but I don't trust Nick Fury. Gossip day after day, even to the point of what is this guy doing? And Tesseract has been studied by S.H.I.E.L.D. for so many years, who knows what they use Tesseract for? Well, even if he ordered the agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. to hand over all my father's notes and data images to me, then I still don't trust him. With that said, Tony Stark turned his head to look at Bruce Banner. Dr. Banner, what about you? Watching Tony turn his head and ask himself, Dr. Banner slightly pushed his glasses. Actually, I don't trust S.H.I.E.L.D. very much either. Ever since they tried to put me in that transparent jar and throw me under the sea, I didn't have any kindness towards them. Although I know that their choice is actually correct, after all Hulk is too dangerous. But I am the party after all, so before finishing the next sentence, Dr. Banner just spread his hands, but clearly expressed his attitude. Listening to Dr. Banner's words, Tony Stark looked at Su-Che and said, "Look, buddy, there are already 2 votes. By the way, where is Steve?" Seeing that Steve didn't follow, Tony Stark asked very curiously, "I'm looking for something." Pushing open the door of the laboratory, Steve pressed the weapon and walked in. "This is it." Shaking the weapon at the 3 people, Steve Rogers put the gun-shaped weapon on the table and said, "Just boarded this aerospace carrier. When Sue asked you and Dr. Banner to look for the Tesseract, I have a look. And I also want to know what S.H.I.E.L.D. has been researching with Tesseract these years." So Sue said, "Let me rest," and after he held Nick Fury down, I went looking for it. It turns out that S.H.I.E.L.D. is actually using the Tesseract for weapon research. Looking at the weapons placed on the table, Tony Stark stepped forward and picked them up. "Wow, I really can't have any hope for them. Fortunately, I was just hacking the system of this aerospace carrier. I want to see if I can find any useful surprises. But now it seems that it is not necessary for the time being. So Steve, are you voting yes or no now?" After fiddling with the weapon, Tony Stark asked Steve. What votes up, votes down, votes?" Turning his head to look at Su-Che, Steve asked curiously. Tell Steve what Nick Fury said to himself. Listen to Su-Che's narration. Steve folded his arms and thought for a moment. "I agree with Sus' proposal." Looking up at everyone, Steve said seriously, "Actually, it is not difficult to know from Thor's incident that the Earth is far from being as safe as we imagined. Perhaps in the vast universe, there may be how many aliens will pay attention to the Earth again. Like Loki this time. Therefore, Earth is very necessary to form a strong team that can deal with the threat from aliens. Avengers is indeed a very good proposal, but like Sue said, the Avengers Alliance should be an independent team with undefined limitations and jurisdiction. At least, this powerful Avengers should not be a knife in the hands of someone or a certain force. Not even S.H.I.E.L.D. Steve Rogers said it very seriously. Because he knows that once the Avengers to be formed become an armed team of a political team, then the consequences must be very serious. I should probably be crazy. Sitting on the round table with arms crossed, Natasha Romanoff looked at the crowd and said speechlessly, "As one of the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I would actually agree with your plan." "In that case, you agree?" Looking at Natasha Romanoff, she was obviously speechless, but there was no expression of objection. Tony Stark clapped his hands. "Okay everyone, I announce that Avengers is officially established from now on. Then the villa area on the Upper East Side is equivalent to the base of our Avengers. According to Sue and Steve's suggestion, the Avengers team will not be led by anyone in any force, including but not limited to Congress, FBI, S.H.I.E.L.D., etc. The team members will help each other. In addition, the Avengers team mainly deals with the crisis on the Earth from alien planets. The members of the first generation of Avengers are Silver Moon Knight Su-Che, Captain Steve Rogers, Natasha Romanoff, me Tony Stark, Dr. Bruce Banner, and Lynn Tay Barton, and the one holding if Thor of the Hammer is willing to join, then we are more than welcome." Speaking of this, Tony Stark suddenly looked at Su-Che. "Dude, are you sure that handsome blonde guy named Thor is willing to join our Avengers? After all, it was Thor's younger brother who took the Tesseract, and what kind of Asgard is Thor? Although he stayed with us for several days, I always feel that Thor is not from our Earth after all. Tony, don't take things so one-sidedly." Listening to Tony's words, Su-Che hadn't spoken yet, and Steve Rogers on the side said, "Anyone who is willing to help our Earth, no matter whether they are aliens or people on Earth. They are all our allies, and hasn't Thor talked to us about Asgard these days? According to Thor, one of Asgard's responsibilities is to protect the 9 realms, and our Earth is one of the planets in the 9 realms, they said. Coupled with Thor's unconscious love for Earth, I think Thor should be willing to join us. Hearing Steve's education, Tony curled his lips. I kind of know why you and my dad became friends, they're all so naive. But Thor joins our Avengers alliance. Anyway, Tony, I have all the money. At worst, let him come as a mercenary. Speaking of this, Tony Stark suddenly looked at Suche. I forgot to ask one of the most important questions. Dude, although Nick Fury came up with the Avengers concept, we shouldn't be getting paid by S.H.I.E.L.D. After all, we have taken SHIELD's money, and when S.H.I.E.L.D. finds us for something, it's not easy for us to refuse. Then do you have any suggestions? Listening to Tony's words, Suche asked with a smile. Definitely, I could start a foundation. Looking at everyone present, Tony Stark said seriously. Believe me, I am the best among us Avengers in terms of financial management. So I suggested setting up a foundation. The definitely foundation is the kind that doesn't need to be sung. The main purpose of this foundation is to pay Avengers Alliance members' salaries, mission allowances, equipment supplies, and compensation for the buildings we destroy in every operation, etc. As the richest person in our team, I put 200 million into the foundation first, and then use stocks and other financial means to establish the foundation. At this moment, Tony Stark's expression was very serious. I know what you are thinking, don't worry. I will return the 200 million principal to myself after the wealth management projects invested by the foundation make money. In this way, firstly, we don't accept SHIELD's salary, so we don't have to be restricted by S.H.I.E.L.D. Second, after I get back the principal, you don't have to feel that you owe me favors. Speaking of this, Tony Stark spread his hands and smiled. Definitely, if you have to feel that you owe me favors, then I don't mind. Really, I think I will really enjoy the feeling that you owe me favors. Watching Tony make this smug expression on purpose. All the people present smiled, but Tony had a point. If you don't take SHIELD's money, you really don't need to listen to SHIELD's orders. I agree. What Tony said makes sense, then I will trouble you, Tony. I also agree, although I got the salary of S.H.I.E.L.D., but because of that, I was originally the agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Although I have 7 degrees, I'm really not good at money. If I have the guarantee of the foundation, I can avoid some difficulties. After all, the job of a university professor is Hulk, and I lost it when I ran away. Since everyone agrees, then I have nothing to say, although I have a coffee shop to make money. Seeing that they agreed with their point of view, Tony Stark snapped his fingers directly. Then it's settled. It's a pity, if it's in our base or somewhere else, maybe we can hold a party to celebrate the establishment of Avengers. Inside the S.H.I.E.L.D. lobby. Nick, is this what you want? Looking at the monitoring screen, the discussions of these people and the weapons of the second phase of S.H.I.E.L.D. research placed on the table. Maria Hill said with a blank expression. The Avengers you and I are talking about seem to have a different nature from the Avengers they formed by themselves. At least, they're out of SHIELD's grasp. Is not it good? Listening to Hill's words, Nick Fury played with the cards in his hand. Avengers are Avengers, the nature will always be the same, and they are all based on the premise of protecting the safety of the Earth. And with Sue and Steve around, I'm very relieved. As for not being in charge of our S.H.I.E.L.D., stopping the action of playing cards in his hand, Nick Fury threw the cards aside casually. What I want to form is an Avengers with independence, not under the command of a certain person or a certain force. Of course that includes me, and I'd love to see them do that. After this Loki incident is over, Hill, it's time for us to act. Don't you need to confirm again? After all, this matter is too important. If the number of personnel and branches cannot be thoroughly investigated, it is very likely that S.H.I.E.L.D. will be subverted. Listen to Nick Fury getting ready to launch the program. Maria Hill frowned immediately. Can't wait any longer, and there's no better opportunity than now. Looking at Hill, Nick Fury got up. Didn't Loki want to bring aliens to invade the Earth? When the aliens arrive, the eyes of the whole world will be attracted and diverted by this matter. Including the World Security Council, so after this fallout, they will know that the Earth needs a complete and safe S.H.I.E.L.D. In fact, since I noticed a large Hydra force hidden in S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Black Gold Diary. Nick Fury has been thinking about how to uproot this Hydra force with the least cost. Until it is seen in the diary that Loki will lead the Chitauri to invade the Earth. This gave Nick Fury a great inspiration. As Suche said, People on Earth need to know the meaning of Avengers because the Earth is not alone in the universe. Similarly, Nick Fury wants to make the group of people in the World Security Council focus on the invading aliens. Once Loki opened the space transmission channel, aliens invaded the Earth on a large scale. At that time, everyone's attention will be on this matter. Even the World Security Council is no exception. And I can also take this opportunity to start cleaning up the Hydra inside S.H.I.E.L.D. Even if the consequences are more serious, they will definitely not exceed the serious consequences of losing S.H.I.E.L.D. in this world. Moreover, the aliens have just invaded the Earth, and I have taken the lead to wipe out Hydra. The World Security Council will never dare to remove myself as the director at this time. This is the reason why Nick Fury has endured until now after knowing the truth about Hydra. If it is normal, or a year or two, after the situation calms down. At that time, if I took the initiative to destroy Hydra, maybe those guys from the World Security Council would directly let myself, the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., resign. As for now, will this battle between the Avengers and the aliens be won? Nick Fury never wanted to lose. After all, Nick Fury still believes in Suche. From Loki taking the Tesseract, to the members of the Avengers Alliance boarding the space carrier. For the past 3 days, except for Tony Stark and Dr. Banner who have been on the aerospace carrier. Even Natasha Romanoff left once. Although Wanda and Pietro have been on vacation during this time. But as the guardian sister, Natasha Romanoff is still not at ease. Until Suche left the aerospace aircraft carrier and returned to the base, he was taken care of by Su. Natasha Romanoff was relieved a lot. 3 days later, evening. I found. Look at the location displayed on the screen at this moment. Tony Stark slammed the table hard. Finally found this damn guy. Guys, the guy with the Fate Scepter is here. Turning his head excitedly just now, Tony Stark realized that Dr. Banner and himself were the only ones left in the entire laboratory. Depend on. Looking at the empty back, Tony Stark spread his hands at Dr. Banner and said, "See, these guys keep saying that we are a team. It turns out they're here to tire us, silly boy." Listening to Tony's complaints, Dr. Banner smiled, but didn't say anything. During this period of time, Dr. Banner has been in contact with members of the Avengers Alliance for a long time, and Dr. Banner has a good understanding of the personalities of these people. Don't look at Tony complaining like he's blaming them. But in fact, he was just complaining. He took out his phone and sent a few text messages. Soon, Steve Rogers and Natasha Romanoff came to the laboratory. "Have you found it yet?" Walking in with the phone in hand, Steve asked Tony and Dr. Banner. "Definitely. That guy named Loki has been locked by us." Locked. Tony Stark operated the keyboard, and after a while, he directly locked on Loki's image using SHIELD's satellite. Wow. Don't say it, it feels like he has a little bit more temperament than Thor. Looking at Loki in a suit and scarf, walking up the steps with a cane, it seems that Loki is going to some kind of banquet. Tony Stark looked at Steve Rogers and said, "No. But it's a pity to be a villain for being so handsome." Looking at Loki in the video frame, Steve Rogers frowned and said, "Now is not the time to talk about this, let's go and get Loki back." "I'm fine, the armor is on the aerospace carrier. By the way, where is Sue?" After nodding, Tony Stark asked Steve. "He's gone home. After all, Wang Da and Pietro don't need to take care of them at home." Natasha Romanoff on the side heard Tony asking Suche, shrugged his shoulders and said, "I'm going to fly a Quinjet fighter jet. Then I'll put on the battle armor and send Sue a message to assemble." At the same time, Kaibing from Xiaolian Villa. "I have to say that speaking with your pants up is tough." After brushing her teeth, she looked at Wanda who ran in again and lay beside her, smiling sweetly with her arm on her pillow. Suche lightly pinched her nose and said with a smile, "Just ran over and left Pietro alone at home? He is not a child anymore, he will be 16 soon." Pillowing Suche's arm, his light white fingers constantly drew circles on Suche's shoulder. "Honey, I actually just drank it, and it's not as hard to swallow as I imagined." "Who did you learn from? Those paid channel movies, our heroines are all drunk." Speaking of this, Wanda raised her head and looked at Suche. "Wait for me for 2 years, after 2 years I will be 18, and I can help you have a baby." It's best to have 2 babies by then. As she said that, Wanda gently tugged at Suche's shirt. Actually, I thought about it before. It would be best to find a boyfriend who loves each other and form a complete family in the future. And then gave birth to 2 very cute babies. I will definitely give our children a complete, warm and loving family. Just like what you said, dear, the more people lack something, the more they hope to get something. I just really want to have a complete and happy family. Seeing Wanda's hopeful eyes, Suche smiled and hugged her in his arms. Beautiful, love back. Although not as sexy as a few years later. But Wanda in this period is full of youthful charm. Definitely, I can still bear it for 2 years. Just as I was talking to Wanda, a message suddenly came to my phone. Opening the message, I saw what Tony said in my heart: they are going to capture Loki, and then gather together on the aircraft carrier. Is it a message from Natasha Romanoff's sister? Sitting up from the bed, Wanda stretched out her white arms to help Suche straighten his collar. It doesn't matter, after all we are still young. The world is still waiting for you to lead them to save. So go, my superhero, and defeat the evil enemies and save the world. Kneel down. Kneel before your king. Walking down the steps calmly with a scepter in hand, dozens of phantom duplications holding a scepter appeared around the square in the next second. Directly blocked the crowd who were about to scream and flee. For a moment, he looked at dozens of Loki who were also scary around him. The frightened crowd gradually became quiet because of fear at this moment. Kneel down. With Loki's roar, dozens of people in the square subconsciously obeyed the order and knelt on the ground. Seeing this scene, Loki held the scepter in his heart in satisfaction, and a graceful smile bloomed on his face. In the past, it was not that no enemy had knelt in front of him and begged to let him go. But it was different from this time, although it is also for the chance of survival. However, at this moment, Loki's heart was a little turbulent. Look, the earthlings like ants are kneeling in front of themselves. And I will be their new king. Spreading his hands, he walked slowly among the crowd kneeling on the ground. If it wasn't for the fact that I was going to be caught by those people on purpose, so as to cause chaos, finally controlled the guy named Steve Rogers. So now, I will definitely enjoy their worship. However, looking at these people kneeling in front of him, Loki was still about to say something. He knew that this was just the beginning, after he became the new king of the earth. Then there will be a person who can't see the edge kneeling in front of him. You don't need to feel humiliated when you kneel before me, and you don't need to feel angry. Walking among the crowd with a spiritual scepter in hand, spreading out his hands like a preacher, as if he wants to spread his glory on the heads of these people. Because human nature is like this is the truth hidden in your blood. You were born longing to be enslaved, and the seemingly glamorous temptation of freedom devours the truth in your heart. The pathetic human beings are always eager to pursue rights, but in fact they are only addicted to longing for approval. You were born to be enslaved, never choose to resist, because in the end, you will still surrender. Listen to Loki's triumphant manifesto. Among the crowd, an old man with gray hair slowly stood up. Straightening his somewhat hunched back and looking at Loki, the old man also looked at Loki with contempt. Maybe, we will choose to surrender, but it will never be you. Seeing that someone really stood up and dared to refute himself, Loki raised his heart and pointed at him with the scepter. Can you still find someone worthy of surrender like me? I've seen too many people like you. Facing the threat from Loki's spiritual scepter, the old man's expression remained unchanged, as if he was not afraid of the threat from Loki at all. Looking at the old man, he showed no fear at all. The tip of the scepter in Loki's mind gradually glowed. Shut up on this old guy, he will be the fate of you people. As soon as the voice fell, the energy from the spiritual certificate was released instantly, and it went straight to the old man. At a critical moment, a figure descended from the sky, and immediately blocked the energy with a shield. The moment the energy of the psychic scepter touched the shield, this energy was directly bounced back. Then directly beat Loki himself to the ground. The last time I came to Daguo, there was also a person who wanted to overpower people. Then everyone knows the result. As Steve's voice fell, the next moment the Quinjet fighter stood up in the air, and the weapon system below the fighter directly locked on to Loki. Loki, put down your weapons and surrender immediately. This is the voice of Natasha Romanoff. Hearing the voice telling him to surrender, Loki chuckled, then quickly raised the scepter and sent out an energy attack towards the Quinjet fighter. Seeing the energy of the psychic scepter rushing towards her, Natasha Romanoff immediately dodged the attack in a Quinjet. Steve also threw the shield at Loki at the first time, and then rushed up to fight together. On the Quinjet. Looking at the scene of the battle below, Tony Stark, who was wearing a steel armor, said to Natasha Romanoff, "Look, I said that Steve's fighting style is very similar to calisthenics, but he still doesn't believe it." With that said, Tony Stark walked towards the back of the cabin wearing his battle armor. "When will Sue come over?" Seeing that Tony wanted to go down to help, Natasha Romanoff immediately asked. "I don't know, but what he means is that when we drive the Quinjet fighter back, we can just take him with us." After speaking, Tony Stark immediately jumped off the fighter plane. Watching Iron Man fly down, Phil Coulson in the cabin walked up to Natasha Romanoff's posture. "I don't understand, Natasha Romanoff. Captain Rogers and Mr. Iron Man Tony Stark are enough to capture Loki. If I want to compare them, I must be a common person. The specific things are what Sue requested." Facing Phil Coulson's doubts, Natasha Romanoff activated the weapon system to aim at Loki, and explained to Phil Coulson. "Sue said that in the entire SHIELD, except me and Barton, the only person you can trust is you. So when you go back later, you have to stay in the Avengers Alliance base to help take care of Wanda and Pietro. Where is the aerospace carrier? Nick Fury has already agreed to Sue's request. So Phil Coulson, I'm afraid the next thing is none of your business." Hearing what Natasha Romanoff said, Phil Coulson was silent for a moment. "I don't know if I should say thank you to that Mr. Suche. There are so many members in SHIELD, and there are many people who are more excellent than me. But Mr. Suche chose me to guard the rear for you. To be honest, this trust is really exciting. I didn't see that you were half excited." Facing Phil Coulson's words, Natasha Romanoff glanced down at Loki, who had been suppressed by Iron Man at the moment. Then he said to Phil Coulson, "Wanda and Pietro are my sisters, and Wanda is also Sue's girlfriend. So he can choose you for this task, perhaps because of his own considerations. But anyway, Phil Coulson, Wanda and Pietro are the only family I have now, hope you take good care of them." Seeing Natasha Romanoff's request, Phil Coulson pursed his lips, then nodded very solemnly. "Well, the members of the Avengers trust themselves so much. Seriously, this is indeed something to be thankful for. Although, in fact, I really want to stay on the aerospace carrier. Look, wouldn't it be better if this was done earlier? Also, it's worth mentioning that your reindeer and Barbie the deer are the same breed." Facing Loki, who was blasted out by the energy bombardment in his palm, fell to the ground at this moment, and the magic phantom helmet gradually faded away. Tony Stark said something half-jokingly. After finishing speaking, Tony turned his head to Steve and said, "Dude, your loyal fans are on the electric fighter plane. You can beat him to the ground without a single blow. Aren't you afraid that your fans will be disappointed with you?" "He's not from common." Listening to Tony's words, Steve held the shield and said, "I punched him just now. Although I didn't use all my strength, I used at least 7% of my strength. But he doesn't have any problems, so his physical fitness should be much, much better than that of our Earthlings." With that said, Steve stepped forward, took out the shackles prepared by SHIELD and handcuffed Loki's hands. "Isn't this normal? After all, they Asgardians have a very long lifespan. That fellow Thor said he's 1,500 years old. Damn it. I can't imagine what a concept of more than 1,500 years old is." Watching Steve grab Loki, but Loki didn't choose to resist, instead he looked at himself and Steve with a smile. "What conspiracy are you thinking, reindeer boy? You'd better put away your little thoughts. Although you are also more than 1,500 years old, according to the age of the Earth, you can be called a fossil reindeer. But I don't mind dropping a missile on you. Heed Tony Stark's warning." Loki smiled indifferently. Even though he was caught, he still maintained an elegant smile. It's just that when Steve took him by Tony's side, he sarcastically said something about ignorant Earthlings. "Steve, I want to punch him again now, or you let him go and we catch him again." Facing Loki's taunt, Tony made a reasonable request to Steve. "Stop messing around, Tony." While pressing Loki onto the Quinjet fighter, Steve said. Sue is still waiting for us to pick him up when we return. Okay. But you've been recovering from the ice for so long. Why don't you have a sense of humor at all? While following Steve Rogers on a Quinjet, Tony Stark complained. Quinjet fighter. See the captain and Tony escort Loki up. Natasha Romanoff immediately launched the fighter plane and began to return. On the way back, opening the visor, Tony Stark looked at Loki and then at Steve. One last look at Loki. What's up, Tony? Watching Tony keep going back and forth between his face and Loki's face a few times. Steve Rogers asked curiously. From the moment he boarded the Quinjet until now, Loki has always looked at you with sexy eyes and a wretched smile. I wonder if he has an abnormal orientation and is attracted by your charm? As Tony's voice fell, Steve still didn't say anything. On the contrary, Loki's face changed, and then he snorted coldly and turned his head to look at the rear of the cabin. Damn it. When did I look at this guy named Steve Rogers with lewd eyes? It was obviously a look of curiosity and appreciation. And, I, Loki, second prince of Asgard, first in line to the throne of Jotunheim. He has always been known for his cunning and elegance. How could the doctor's appearance be so insignificant? If it wasn't for the next plan, damn, I really want to let this guy with an iron shell all over his body know. Dare to speak out and mock the great Loki, what will happen? On the other hand, Phil Coulson looked at Loki. Not that he has any bad thoughts about Loki, but I always feel as if something is going to happen with him. Came to the Avengers Alliance base at a very fast speed. As soon as the Quinjet fighter jet landed on the lawn, Su Che, dressed as a Silver Moon Knight, stood there. His arm was still held by Wanda, and Pietro was also standing there curiously. Watching the Quinjet drop, Wanda let go of Su Che's arm, and greeted their sister Natasha Romanoff, Steve Rogers and Tony Stark with a smile. Thank you for your trust, Lord Silvermoon Knight. I will use my life to guarantee that Wanda and Pietro will never be in any danger. Stepping down from the Quinjet fighter, Phil Coulson came to the Soviet enemy and made sure of it very seriously. Yes, Phil Coulson thought Loki was still in danger. That's why I need to come here to protect the Wanda twins. You don't need to worry too much. Seeing Phil Coulson's very serious assurance, Su Che took off the blindfold that can distort people's vision and cognition. Well, since the Avengers Alliance has been established, there is no need to hide my identity anymore. After all, he's not like little Spider-Man himself. He patted Phil Coulson on the shoulder, then turned and put the visor on Wanda's cheek. On the contrary, Loki's curious gaze kept sweeping across the faces of Wang Ji and Pietro. Until the Quinjet fighter took off. Loki, who was very silent all the way, suddenly said to Su Che, "These two were born on the earth, it's a pity to be with you, especially that girl." What did you sense? Hearing Loki's sudden words, Su Che asked while crossing his arms. Do you think I'll tell you? We're not on the same team. But I think that when I conquer the earth and let you kneel in front of me, maybe Shu Ying should let them stay away from me. Once some people get angry, the burning of anger is very scary. Listen to Loki's puns. Tony Stark frowned, and the energy cannon in his palm aimed at Loki unconsciously. He thought that Loki was going to talk ironically again, and wanted to use Wanda and Pietro to threaten Su Che. In Tony's heart, Su Che is his friend, and Wanda and Pietro, Tony also has a slight sense of indebtedness to them. So when Tony thought Loki was talking ironically, he almost threw a power cannon in Loki's face. Looking at Tony Stark, who was threatening him, Loki chuckled, then stopped talking. Stupid earthlings, girls with such ability have not found out. If she had been placed by her mother's side since she was a child, then maybe the title of the #1 mage in the 9 realms has already belonged to her. Maybe, in just a few years, she will become one of the most powerful and top combat forces in Asgard. Tisk, stupid and pathetic earthlings, rumble. Click. Kun Shan is flying among the clouds by fighter jets. The originally clear night sky gradually became cloudy. Bursts of lightning and thunder flickered in the dark clouds. Seeing this scene, Loki looked a little nervous and looked directly outside. From being caught to now, except for a few words, Loki has been very quiet the whole time, as if he didn't care that he was caught by them. But now the abnormal expression was naturally noticed by several people in the cabin. Why? Are you still afraid of thunder? Seeing Loki's nervous look, Tony Stark joked with a smile. I thought you were not afraid of anything. It's not that I'm afraid of thunder, but I don't like the guy who is about to appear. Facing Tony Stark's taunt, Loki shrugged and leaned against the cabin wall. Wait for a while for Thor to drop 980, then grab himself out of here and press about Tesseract. Just as Loki imagined, Thor fell from the sky and landed directly on the Quinjet. As the tail hatch opened, Thor flew straight in, wearing the red cloak armor. Seeing Thor come in, Loki sits up straight, ready for a while to cushion himself when he grabs his collar and flies out. As a result, things develop beyond his expectations. I saw Thor stepped forward to greet Su-Che and the others, and then he actually stood in the position of a big brother, expressing apology like Su-Che and the others because of his actions. What's the situation? Thor, an impulsive, reckless and arrogant idiot, actually learned to apologize to others? Seeing this scene, Loki opened his mouth slightly, and couldn't believe his eyes. No, the Thor in front of me could not be someone else's counterfeit. What about your identity as Prince of Asgard? What about the pride from Asgard warrior? How dare you apologize to earthlings like them who are as humble as ants? I don't want my face anymore. No, what happened to Thor during his time on Earth? That's right, I heard Heimdall say that Thor had a love affair on Earth. I also went to the Earth to visit Thor in person, and he was doing well. Can he actually learn to apologize? Is the target the weakest Earthling among the 9 realms? Crazy. Must be crazy. Anyway, either he is crazy, or Thor, a stupid idiot, is crazy. I didn't expect that he would do such a thing. He looked at Su-Che and Steve Tony apologetically. Thor, who was carrying Mjolnir, said seriously, after I returned to Asgard from Earth, I had a very serious talk with my father for a long time. The real problem with Loki being like this is me. Yes, for more than 1,500 years, Loki has been living in my shadow, but I don't know it. I am enjoying the favor from my father, the admiration and cheers from the people of Asgard, and even the arrogant self-satisfaction with it. I didn't realize that my younger brother actually wanted to be recognized, applauded and admired. It is precisely because of this reason that Loki became like this. Having said that, Thor raised his hand and squeezed Su-Che's shoulder. Su, I know that you are the soul of this team, so if you want to blame me, I should be blamed for all this. I am the one who caused me brother Loki has become such a real. Shut up, you pompous stupid idiot. If Thor is sensational, or strong, or just as impulsive and reckless as before, whatever the outcome, Loki would be smiling to see what happened next. However, the idiot Thor actually apologized. Moreover, he took the responsibility on himself, stood on his own ground, and apologized to them. All of a sudden, Loki's original playful mentality was completely broken. The bloody bastard. How could he do this? How could he do this? In fact, Loki has always had a deep grudge against Thor. He robbed himself of the love he deserved from his father. He blamed Thor for depriving him of the adoration and cheers he deserved from the people of Asgard. He complains that Thor is more popular than himself in everything he does. He complained and complained that if this reckless and arrogant bastard could have become like this earlier, how could he have ended up like this? If only he could have discovered this before and was willing to sincerely apologize to himself as he is now. Then maybe, a lot of things will be different. I never wanted to rob him of the throne. I just want to get the same treatment as him. But now, it's too late. When I think of Odin's aging appearance, I think of the oppressive Titan sitting on the throne. A trace of loneliness flashed in Loki's eyes, then he lowered his head and smiled. It's just that there is a trace of sourness in the laughter. Loki, sorry, it was me before. Before Thor could finish speaking, Loki, who was smiling a little sourly, raised his head instantly. The eyes are full of banter, and it seems that he has returned to the former Asgard, the god of lies and banter. I thought you had changed. Sure enough, you are still that arrogant idiot now. Please, my big brother, you don't think you can make me give up all this with a few sour words. Tisk tisk tisk. After a few tuts, Loki looked past Thor and looked at Su-Che. How could you choose such an idiot to be your teammate? Now I seriously doubt the reason why you and Thor became friends. It's because your IQ has been pulled to the point of being as idiotic as him. After speaking, Loki looked at Thor and suddenly grinned. Oh, my dear big brother, your trick is useless now, so what are you going to do next? Are you trying to beat up your dear brother and find out the whereabouts of Tesseract? If you want, then come on, anyway, this is not the first time. Listening to Loki's words were full of banter and irony. Thor turns the hammer around, then walks over to Loki and sits down. Throwing his arms around Loki's shoulders, Thor looked into Loki's eyes. I know that everything you're doing is wrong. But it's okay, Loki, as your big brother, I will help you take on this mistake. Believe me, no matter what we face, I hope that our brothers can be together. Hey, stop your speech that is not sensational, but rather stupid. Looking at Thor, Loki continued to speak harshly. Besides, I don't know if Odin told you, I'm not his own. So, don't put on a big brother erroneous drama, which is more embarrassing than the ones in Asgard. If it was before, Loki would have a disdainful attitude and mocking layman's language. Then Thor has already squeezed Loki's neck. But now, no matter how much Loki taunts, Thor just laughs and keeps silent. Wait until after Loki has said a lot of sarcasm and shuts up when he can't get the effect he wants. Thor laughed and said, when I came from Asgard, my mother told me that after all these things are over, I will take you back to Asgard. What, the dungeon is ready for me, isn't it? Looking sideways at Thor, Loki's expression is mocking. No, it's my mother who said she misses you a little bit. Putting his hand on Loki's shoulder and gently squeezing, Thor sighed unconsciously. Since the moment you stood on the Bifrost and jumped off without hesitation. Mother believes that you will not die so easily, but she knows that you will not die, but she still worries for a long time. It wasn't until Heimdall said that you were still alive. Mother was a little relieved. You know, Loki, whether you were born to Mother or not, her love for you has never been less than half. Listening to Thor say this very seriously, Loki bowed his head in silence for a while. Mother, are you okay? She is in good health now, but she just misses you a little. Where's Odin? Our father. He has been silent for a long time since you jumped off Bifrost. Perhaps, father has been reflecting on himself. But I can be sure that my father loves you no less than he loves me, it's just that he can't express it. Ah. Listening to Thor's words, the corners of Loki's mouth turned up a little, but he still pretended to be very indifferent. Yes, after listening to Thor say God King Odin, his adoptive father reflected on himself, Loki felt a little bit of complacency in his heart. At least, according to Loki, it's just a way of loving. Not far away. Listen to the conversation between the two brothers in the cabin. Tony took the phone and typed a line of text to Suche and Steve. I took a look at the phone and saw that it said, Tisk. It seems like a bloody 8 o'clock TV series. By the way, is the relationship between the royal family of Asgard also so bloody? Looking at Tony's typing, Steve looked at Tony, meaning please, Thor is one of our scheduled Avengers members anyway, so don't be so harsh. To be honest, Steve really likes this kind of bromance drama. At least, it reminded him of the Bucky who would always stand by his side and support him. Instead, Suche took Tony's mobile phone and typed a line, then handed it to Tony. Suche. I feel okay. After all, the royal family has to be full of all kinds of gossip and restlessness to attract more attention. And although these two Asgard brothers claim to be gods, I think they are just Asgardians who actually live longer and are stronger than Earthlings. As long as you are a person, you can't escape the shackles of emotion. So, the general development of a TV series, to be honest, I am not surprised at all. In addition, I feel that this is still good. What I actually want to see is the scene where brothers in the royal family stab each other for the throne. Tony Stark took the phone and looked at Suche's typing reply on the phone. He couldn't help giving Suche a thumbs up. It means you are still more vicious. Deleted a line of words typed by Suche, and then Tony started typing again. Tony Stark. Do you think that Loki, the dear Barbie, will be emotionalized by Thor, the shocking male protagonist, and then take the initiative to tell where the Tesseract is hidden? I think it's quite entertaining. Suche. I think it's useless, and it's obvious that Loki was captured by us on purpose, and what his purpose is not yet known. But you can play with him. Tony Stark. Are you sure? I think my guess is correct. Suche. I stick to my opinion. How about we make a bet? Tony Stark. No problem. Just bet on who will be in charge of the barbecue at the next party. Suche. Always be with me. Watching Suche and Tony pass the mobile phone to each other and type. Steve Rogers raised his head and glanced at the cabin, then shook his head with a helpless smile. Obviously there is a picture of deep brotherhood. But these two guys are using this kind of thing as a bet. No, how can this be? Man can't. At least shouldn't. Thinking of this, Steve Rogers stretched out his hand seriously, took the mobile phone passed by the two, and then started typing a line with a crackling sound. Steve Rogers. Although Thor has a very deep affection for Loki's younger brother, and he feels so guilty about Loki. Thinking that Loki will become what he is now is all the reason why he has not noticed Loki for more than 1,500 years. But I'm on Sus' side, and I also think it's very difficult for Thor to influence Loki with brotherhood. So the bet is on me. I also think Thor will fail and Luke won't tell the whereabouts of the Tesseract. Looking at Steve, who took the phone from his hand with a look of righteousness. Tony thought he was going to start lecturing like his dad again. In the end, he took the mobile phone he handed over, and found that this guy also wanted to get involved in the betting business. Looking at the line written by Steve, Tony Stark rolled his eyes. Oh, I didn't say anything. Definitely during this period, neither Steve nor Sue can learn. Thinking of this, Tony Stark continued to type. I thought, Steve, you would be on my side. Once the bet is established, no one can go back on his word. Also, what if Loki really insists on not revealing the whereabouts of the Tesseract, and then uses the Tesseract to open the way for aliens to invade Earth? Steve. Definitely stick together and fight, we have no choice but this. Winning is the victory of the Earth. If you lose, you have to lose together. At least, Earth won't fall until I die in an alien weapon. I could play with them all day. See what Steve edited. Tony Stark immediately gave him a thumbs up. Sure enough, he is indeed the undead and famous superhero in Legendary. In this case, let's fight. I also want to try how powerful these so-called aliens are. By the way, Sue, are you not worried at all? Taking the phone handed over by Tony, Suche deleted and then edited it. Suche. There is nothing to worry about. If we win, we will party together, and if we lose, we will bear it together. Besides, who said we will lose? Watch what Suche edited. Both Steve and Tony nodded to Suche immediately. Yeah, who said we'd lose? Aerospace aircraft carrier. He led a large group of people to escort Loki to the transparent cage. While pressing the control panel next to him, Nick Fury said to Loki, remind you in advance, if you want to escape, even if you just scratch the glass in front of you lightly. Down. Then you will follow this cage and fall from a height of 9,000 meters. As soon as the voice fell, the bottom of the transparent jar that was once specially used for Dr. Banner was opened, and a strong airflow instantly poured into the space carrier. Looking down the transparent cage, Loki found that the bottom looked like an endless abyss. Seeing Loki like this, Nick Fury used the control panel to turn off the transparent cage actuator. Then he said to Loki, in Thor's words, you are so smart, you should be able to understand my words, definitely. I think you should also be able to see the current form clearly. Pointing to Loki, said Ant. He pointed to the control panel again, and said shoes. Nice to pay back the metaphor of Loki's first appearance. He. I have to say, this cage is really good. Looking at the surroundings of this transparent cage, Lu Ji seemed to be admiring his own new house. There is no consciousness of any prisoner at all. But I think, this transparent cage should not be built for me. Definitely not. Listening to Loki's question, Nick Fury stared into his eyes. This was once built for someone who is better than you. Heard of it. Turning his head and looking at the other side of the transparent jar, his eyes seemed to be able to see the crowds in the distance through the surrounding steel hulls. Obviously a stupid and powerful beast, but he still pretends to be a normal person. Nick Fury. Tell me how terrified and flustered you have to be to use such a beast as a rescue. Fear? Panic? Listening to Loki's words, Nick Fury took a few steps forward without fear. You threatened to go to war on my world, and you stole energy that you couldn't control. You talk about peace, but you actually trample the earth for fun. Loki, you have forced me to do whatever it takes, and I will let you know what real fear and absurdity are. Listening to Nick Fury's threat, Loki leaned forward slightly. Wow, I like such a powerful threat, but you have had Tesseract for decades, but you can't develop its maximum power. And me, just taking Tesseract for less than a few days, can make you nervous and fearful, which must be very difficult for you to accept. As he spoke, Loki looked at Nick Fury as if he were looking at a wild man with strong limbs but a simple mind. His eyes were full of pity and mockery. You have obtained the Tesseract, and you have its huge and endless energy, but what do you use it for? Do you want to make it a lamp to illuminate all mankind? What a sad and stupid human being. You will see that Tien Mo is the real calendar area. Seeing the endless mockery in Loki's eyes, Nick Fury suddenly laughed. Turning around and walking out, he said, "Okay, if you want to read the magazine, True Power, please tell me. For the sake of saving face, I can give you a magazine to pass the time." After speaking, Nick Fury left without any hesitation. Watching Nick Fury leave, Loki looked the transparent jar up and down. And the conference room. At this moment, the members of Avengers are watching all the scenes that just happened. I think you guys are pretty good too, and during the time I spent with you, I felt like a good fit. So I thought I should accept your invitation to be a part of Avengers. Definitely, the most important thing is that I just heard from you that Avengers members still have salaries, and they are still very high. Even dental insurance. I think this benefit is still very good, although I may not need dental insurance. Holding a hammer, I listened to Tony explain the concept of Avengers, as well as various benefits and so on. Anyway, after hearing Tony say that he can protect the Earth and have super high welfare benefits, Thor agreed without hesitation and joined the Avengers team. Well, no matter, Thor joined the Avengers alliance because he likes the Earth and wants to protect the Earth. It was because of the generous salary and benefits in the Avengers alliance that I was attracted. Anyway, with a powerful teammate like Thor, the Avengers alliance, a team whose purpose is to protect the Earth, is even stronger. Definitely, there is actually another layer of consideration behind this. That is, Thor is the Prince of Asgard, the future is the King of Asgard. If he joins the Avengers alliance, it will prove that the Earth will have an ally who claims to be God's domain. Oh, by the way, I don't need to charge this time. As if thinking of something, Thor immediately said to everyone, "After all, what happened this time was caused by Loki, and Loki is my younger brother. So this time I'm free, but I won't refund the money I paid for Dr. Banner's attack last time. Although there is no further development of that matter, I always feel that the matter is not far from over. So I won't refund the money, and when it happens again, I will definitely be at the forefront as soon as possible." Listening to Thor's words, everyone's expressions were a little weird. But no one said anything. Forget it, it's only a few $1,000s. If Thor is really greedy for money, then the asking price last time will definitely not be just such a small amount. It should be counted as a normal remuneration, just a normal appearance fee. Well, Thor's appearance fee is even less than some beautiful models' appearance fee. According to the current market, Thor's appearance fee is equal to that of ordinary models and less than that of beautiful models. Tisk. In this way, Tony thinks it is very cost-effective. Thor. What do you think Loki is thinking? Seeing that everyone was silent, Steve Rogers spoke first. You and Loki are brothers, and have a brotherhood of more than 1,500 years, so you should know what Loki wants to do right. After all, no matter how you look at it, it seems that Lu Ji's arrest was all intentional. Listening to Steve's words, all eyes were on Thor. Only Su Che was playing a standalone game with his mobile phone. It seems that he doesn't care about Loki's plan at all. Does Thor understand what Loki is thinking? Definitely don't understand. But he can be sure that Loki must have something in preparation. In fact, there is not a big difference between saying and not saying in front of Thor. Everyone started thinking about what Loki would do next. Only Steve looked at Su Che and asked, "Su, what do you think Loki will do next?" I can guess a few, but on the way back, I remember Tony saying that Luke was watching you the whole time, right? Putting away the phone and looking at Steve, Su-Che raised his hand. Orange energy flashed in front of Steve, and then entered Steve's brain. Although he didn't know what Su-Che was going to do, Steve Rogers didn't even make any subconscious evasion movements. For Su-Che, he trusts him very much. I just blocked your mind with the energy of mind magic. Looking at Steve, Su-Che said seriously, since Loki controls K-Lin-Te, then he should know the strength of his people from K-Lin-Te. As long as the members of our Avengers alliance are united, Loki's plan to lead aliens to invade Earth will definitely fail. So, in order for his plan to occupy the Earth to succeed, what should he do first? Divide us, and defeat it completely. Hearing Su-Che's words, Natasha Romanoff on the side answered, even some people who control our Avengers alliance, and then use these people under control to deal with the remaining 10 movies. So, Su, you just used that magical thing to block Steve's brain? It's not a shield, at most it's an uncontrollable mind. After all, Luke kept an eye on Steve the whole way back in the Quinjet. I guess Loki set his sights on Steve first. After Queen Frigg's trust value reaches over 90%, the system's reward is the purest spiritual magic. Blocking Steve's mind with psychic magic, embankment counts as mind gem. Okay. In fact, Su-Che is not 100% sure whether his mind magic can block mind gem's mind control. Hearing Su-Che's words, Tony Stark curiously picked up the psychic scepter on the table. Is it such a small thing that glows like a scepter of fate, and can easily control other people's thinking? I can't even imagine how many unknown existences there are in the universe. Speaking of this, Tony Stark picked up the scepter in his heart, and touched Steve lightly with the top of the scepter. Steve, I order you to jump off the aircraft carrier. The moment the psychic scepter touched Steve's combat uniform, the energy of the psychic scepter directly merged into Steve Rogers' body. The eyes also turned into the color of mind gem in an instant, but Steve's eyes became clear almost in the blink of an eye. When I heard Tony Stark say, I ordered myself to jump off this space carrier. Steve gave Tony a middle finger without any hesitation. However, the energy of this scepter is indeed very strange. For a moment just now, I even really wanted to jump off the aircraft carrier. Taking the psychic scepter from Tony's hand, Steve glanced at it, and then said to Su-Che, but maybe it's because you blocked the thinking in my mind. I am free from the consequences of being controlled by a psychic scepter. Hearing what Steve said, Dr. Banner on the side said, that is to say, all you need is sus-ability, plus your own willpower, so you can be free from the control of the psychic scepter, right? Speaking of this, Dr. Banner looked at Su-Che with hope. Su, can you please come here for me, and then let me control my emotions? This way, I can control when the Hulk appears. Definitely can. Facing Dr. Banner's request, Su-Che nodded. The main ability of my spiritual magic is not only telepathy, changing thinking, controlling thinking, creating illusions of thinking, but also planting a small seed in a person's thinking. Seed. Dr. Banner, I can plant a thought seed in your mind after the alien invasion event is over. Then you can get used to it and control the emotional transition. This way, you can control your emotions and choose when to transform into a Hulk. Hearing what Su-Che said, Dr. Banner's expression was very sincere. Thank you. Don't look at Dr. Banner's control as very good now. In fact, he has been hiding for so long, he used various methods to suppress the transformation into Hulk. Even the way of yoga has been used, but the result? Although he now maintains the identity of Bruce Banner, not the Green Titan Hulk. But in fact, he has always had a strong anger in his heart. Dr. Banner knew it was Hulk's wrath. Once you can't completely control your emotions, then you will immediately lose control and go berserk. Then, as before, cause irreversible consequences. Dude, can you give us a bit of that mind magic of yours? Looking at Su-Che, Tony Stark spread his hands and said, prevent us from being controlled by Loki with this scepter of fate. I'm fine, it's a breeze. With that said, Su raised his hand to give Tony a touch. I don't need it. After all, I am a god. This kind of mind control can be used on earthlings, but gods can't be controlled. Thor on the side smiled and waved his hand, indicating that he didn't need it. Also, for infinite gems, the people of Asgard really don't value it that much. Even Odin once collected 6 infinite gems in order to make Asgard the master of the universe. Well, it can be seen from Hela's attitude towards the space gem. Asgard people admit that infinite gems is very powerful, but it is only a good evaluation. Everyone, if Loki wants to use the psychic scepter to control us, shouldn't he first escape from that transparent jar and then snatch the psychic scepter from us? After Su Che finished the work for a while, Natasha Romanoff pointed to the psychic scepter on the table. I don't think that Loki, who has been imprisoned, has a way to take it away from us. Hearing what Natasha Romanoff said, Wani Stark finally realized it. That's right. The premise of everything is that Loki will escape from that transparent jar, and then snatch the psychic scepter away from the hands of several of them. Otherwise, these assumptions simply do not hold. Etc. Turning his head to look at Su Che, Tony Stark suddenly thought that all these assumptions were made by Su. So that means, Su is very sure that Loki can escape. This can't help but make Tony Stark a little puzzled. Why? Su would have so much confidence in Loki. Just because Loki is that prince of Asgard? Wrong. Very wrong. Unless, Su knows something.